So our first presenter is Angelica Gantt. She's a AFAR and poli-sci double major with a minor in business. Hence her beautiful face right here. And she decided to go to the city that never sleeps in your city to work with this Sri Lanka portion of the UN right here. So without further ado, please welcome Ms. Angelica Gantt.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like the speaker said, my name is Angelica Gantt. I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama. I'm a double major in political science and African American studies with a minor in business administration. I'm a part of EPG cohort 13. So the theme of my presentation is: if you fail to plan, then if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. So in the fall of 2015 is when I first started my journey at Berea College. I had a plan. I knew what major I wanted to major. I knew the major that I wanted to get my degree in. I knew the career interest that I wanted, and I also expected that I graduate in May of 2019. Well, that plan changed, obviously. So I began becoming a member of EPG in the summer of 2016. Going through the Summer Institute has given me a lot of different skills and abilities, motivation, passions, and different drives. Dr. Hackbert's advice and the mentors throughout our program has helped shape me and form me in different ways to help me be successful throughout my Berea College experience. From the first summer, I was able to apply my EPG skills and abilities to my second summer, and that was in summer 2017. I did my first internship, or my first direct field experience, through the Cincinnati Public Defender's Office in Cincinnati, Ohio. Through this internship experience, I was able to learn more about the criminal justice system, the law that it affects society, and people beyond the law. Through this internship experience, I was able to understand the passions that I have and the things that I do not like about the workforce or about certain different fields and experiences. So it was not until the fall of 2018, which was last year, when I decided to become a double major. Who would think? My senior year, I'm about to graduate in May of 2019 when I decided to become a double major in political science. Well, this opportunity came about when a student, a Berea College student that already graduated, she gave me a word about doing a double major in political science. Well, I never thought about it really significantly because I was ready to graduate and I had many different feelings about extending my graduation. So I decided to take the opportunity because the extra major opened up a lot of different doors to a lot of different opportunities. With this extra extension, I was able to study abroad for a second time, and I was able to go to China, East Asia. And I was also able to complete another internship, was with the United Nations. So what about my internship process and how did I get to the United Nations? Well, I didn't really start applying or doing my internship searches until December of last year. I didn't really get serious until the spring semester of this year, which is in January. I only applied to 12 different opportunities. I kept applying and I kept applying. I knew the field that I wanted to go into, but I never really thought about applying in New York. I never thought about applying to the United Nations, even though there were cohort members that applied there before and got accepted. The only different regions that I applied to was Birmingham, Kentucky, and Ohio. Like I said, I never thought about applying to New York. So, Dr. Hackbert really talks about the power of connections. You build meaningful connections and build meaningful relationships with different people that can help you move forward in your life. So I built a connection. I had a connection with Ashar, which is the HDA president to this day. Ashar inspired me to apply for the internship with the Sri Lankan mission to the United Nations. Ashar is from Sri Lanka, and so she gave me a Facebook message on Facebook and told me about this experience. I didn't think I had the confidence or ability to apply for this internship, but I did it anyway. Dr. Hackbert really instilled in us that you should always take necessary risks, and so I decided to take that risk. I I did a lot of, I talked to a lot of different mentors, I polished my resume, and I sent it to the diplomatic officer that she gave me the contact information for. With this, within 2 to 3 weeks, I got my internship acceptance letter. And I didn't get my internship until March of 2019. So what is the United Nations? Most people think that the United Nations is just this one big organization, which it is, but it's very complex. And through my internship experience, I was able to understand the complexity of it. This picture that is shown is the headquarters of the United Nations in New York City. The United Nations was established in 1945 and is composed of 196 countries or member states. There are many different routes that you can get to the United Nations to have an internship experience. And that's what a lot of people don't know. So I didn't actually do my internship with the headquarters. I did it with a member state. And the member state are countries, so 196 like I said. But you can also do it through an NGO, which is a non-governmental organization. The NGOs that are connected to the United Nations that I have an example of is UN Women, the World Bank, and UNICEF. UNICEF deals with kids, if people didn't know. So what were my functions and roles while being in the United Nations as an intern? One of my main functions was to be a representative of Sri Lanka to the United Nations. So I went to a lot of different meetings, informal and formal negotiations, talking to member states, talking to different NGOs about some of the missions or goals that Sri Lanka is trying to implement in their national and global community. Another opportunity that I had to do while I was at the United Nations was being part of the ECOSOC chamber. So at the United Nations, or with Sri Lankan mission, there are 3 diplomatic officers. I had an opportunity to be under supervision of one of the diplomatic officers that was over the ECOSOC chamber. So ECOSOC stands for Social and Economic Chamber. And I decided to do this chamber particularly because I wanted to learn more about how economics and politics interrelate with each other in the global community. One interesting thing about this building or this structure that you all see in the middle is that this is the building, or this is the room in the United Nations that's specifically dedicated to ECOSOC. The whole idea about the structure is that, as you can see the circles, you can see some of the effect of the paper or the wall coming down. It's basically just to emphasize that sustainable development is never finished. So there's always more work and room to do when it comes to building a better earth for everyone, and also there's always room to grow in the global community. Another one of my roles and functions that I had to do was to attend cultural events. So this is the picture that's on the far right. And this is they wrapped me in a sari, which is one of the cultural wearings in Sri Lanka. And through these different events, I was able to network with a lot of different people outside the UN, with world leaders, but also people that affect the UN in some type of capacity. I gained a lot of connections, I built experiences, I learned other stories about other people and their experiences, and it really shaped my life as it is today. So what are some of the highlights of my internship experience? One of the main highlights that I had was attending the high-level political forum. The high-level political forum is basically this midpoint review where member states come together and they talk about the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals, if people don't know, are 17 goals that everyone in the global community has accepted to implement into their national and global policies. One of the goals in particular is to end hunger by 2030. Think about that. Do you all really think that the Sustainable Development Goals are realistic? Well, at this conference, I didn't think that they were. But at the end of this conference, I knew that ending hunger by 2030 is a possibility that everyone in the world can do. If you put your mind together, your resources, skills, and abilities, it is possible. One of the things that was really cool about this forum was that I was able to hear many different speeches from a lot of different people from all over the world. And this picture in particularly is some youth, and they were addressing the General Assembly about some of the issues that they were facing in their career in high school. And they really just encouraged the member states to work diligently with achieving the SDGs. about this forum was that I was able to meet world leaders, like I said. This is a picture of the secretary to the president of Sri Lanka. He flew all the way from Sri Lanka to the United Nations to give his speech about what Sri Lanka is doing to implement these goals in national policies. He talked about some of the challenges and also the successes of Sri Lanka in implementing these different goals and policies. So you can't be successful in an internship without having challenges. So I had many different challenges. One of the challenges that I had was a 12-hour time difference. So when I flew back in from China, I only had 1 day to prep before I went to my internship experience in New York. It was very hectic in trying to adjust back to the time zone, but I was able to adapt quickly on my feet. So a recommendation, if you're trying to maximize your summer, is to try to plan more effectively when you're thinking about both studying abroad and also completing the internship. Another challenge that I had was unstructured environments. So I was used to more of a structured environment, but being with the United Nations and the Sri Lankan mission, it was very complex. Some of the environments were unstructured in a way, and I had to adapt to those structures within the office, but also at the headquarters in New York. Another challenge that I had was dealing with the complexity or the complexity hierarchy structure. And so while I was at the internship, I had to understand what is the hierarchy within the United Nations, what is the hierarchy within the mission itself, because there are a lot of different organizations and a lot of different people that hold positions in the United Nations, and that's the Sri Lankan mission. And so I had to figure out how to maneuver myself within the United Nations to get a better understanding of how these global policies and initiatives are implemented in national policy. So what were some of my key learnings from my internship experience overall? I learned how to think on my feet. I learned how to be more adaptable to my environment and the people that are around me. I was able to deal with ambiguity and uncertainty throughout my internship experience. I was able to manage my time well. I was able to learn how to practice patience and understanding. And I was able to deal with high levels of stress. So what's next for me? My next goal is to attend the 74th session of the United Nations to the General Assembly. This is an event that will be happening next weekend, and it's when all the head of states come into the United Nations and they implement the policies that all of the diplomats have been working on throughout the whole year in the last 5 years. So it's really a big event, and I'll be able to participate in that and understand all these different issues and challenges that the global community face and how they will be implemented in national policy. Also, what's next for me is that during my internship experience, I was able to do research. And so the research that I'm conducting, I'll be able to give it to my faculty advisor at the end of my internship experience. But also, I was able to gain more connections and understanding and information, which helped me to build my capstone for my political science course that I'll be presenting at the end of this semester. So what is some advice? My advice is to have a plan, but don't be afraid to change that plan. As you go throughout your life and career in college, you will have many different obstacles, opportunities. Just be adaptable to those changes. Also, another piece of advice I would have is to follow your dreams and passions. I always thought about working at the United Nations, but I didn't think it would come so fast in my life, but it did. And when it happened, I had to take the opportunity. And the last piece of advice I would have is to network. Network with all type of people. Network with your classmates. Network with your professors, your advisors, your mentors, because you never know what the connections that you could bring and bring you forth with better opportunities after you graduate. I want to thank the EPG family, my academic advisor, John Heyrman, my friend that connected me to the internship is Shar. I want to thank the internship office for help polishing my resume and helping with my interviewing skills. I want to thank the Labor Department, because without the Labor Department, I wouldn't be able to get these different skills that I had to make me be successful while I was in my internship. Thank you. Any
learn anything from doing that internship that helped you with your second?
Yes, I think that internship experience, it taught me about the law in particularly. And so understanding the law and the complexity of the law. So when I was able to go to the UN, I was able to understand some of the policies and the structures and how they implement laws into their governments, right? And that really just kind of helped me move forward with the internship. And, any more questions? Yeah.
How was the application process to apply for the United Nations?
Yeah, so the application process can be super long, but since I had the connection with the SHAR, she only gave me the contact information of the diplomatic officer, and I had to polish my resume. I polished my resume and my cover letter, and I sent it to the diplomatic officer, and within a week, that's how I was able to get the internship. But if you go through the NGO route, there's a more complicated process. Like you have to go through a security clearance, you have to go through an extensive background check, but you also have to put in an actual application, and resume, and an interview. So that process is a little bit more extensive than going through the member state route.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What was it like living in New York?
Oh man, living in New York is very different than the places that I lived in. One of the shocking things that I saw while I was in New York is the homeless population. Like one of the shocking things that I saw was that the New York City GDP, which is gross domestic product, it's more than some low-income countries, but the city alone has so much wealth that some developing countries or low-income countries can't even match to that. So overall, I had a great experience there, but I did see some of the hypocrisy within the United Nations, and also being in New York City with a global hub, but not tapping those different populations and different routes. Yeah.
I know you said you went to China and all that earlier. So, did you see any similarities between the big cities in China and New York?
Yeah. So one of the similarities that I saw was when I was in China, specifically Beijing, the metro system. So in Beijing, it's a really complex metro system, and while also in New York, there's also a complex metro system. It's really crowded. Like New York City is really crowded, and Beijing is really crowded. Also, the pollution issues that you see in Beijing, sometimes you can't even see the sky. But being in New York, the pollution is also an issue as well. So those are some of the similarities that I had. Yeah, go ahead.
Question to go with that one. Did anything that you experienced in China help you get better adapted to being in New York and being amongst the diplomats from other countries?
Yes, I think overall, my international experience overall, like being in Ghana, but also China, helped me with understanding culture, like thinking in a different mindset, opening my eyes up to a different worldview, ultimately helped me with my internship experience and interacting with different countries that have different values and have different policies, or have different policies and social structures. Yeah. Go ahead.
So you're an American
Yeah.
representing Sri Lanka. So, how did this experience kind of change the way you thought about representing a particular perspective and listening to different perspectives when you're trying to work through these important issues?
I think it made me more aware of the complexity of culture in different environments. So being American, representing Sri Lanka, but also understanding some of the policies of Sri Lanka, I had to place my mindset of how would this country represent, place myself in the mindset of another person that's Sri Lankan, like Ishara. She helped me a lot with understanding the culture of Sri Lanka. And as I was going through my internship, I used her experience, but also some of my research experience and study abroad experience to help me move forward in the right direction.
Thank you, Joe. That was a really great presentation. Thank you, Joe.